By popular demand, on this episode I'll be taking you through the basics of wild versus urban foraging. Now the first step to foraging is you want to figure out what grows in your environment, and the best way to do that is find a good website or maybe a forum on Facebook and take a look at everything that does grow in your environment that's edible. Then you can kind of make a mental library of what you should be looking for. So for me in British Columbia, living on Vancouver Island, there's a website called Northern Bushcraft, which has pretty much all the berries that grow around here. And so I can just look at that, and they have pictures and information. So you want to find yourself a good website like that, or like I said, Facebook group, and to start to stockpile that visual library in your head. So I recommend to start with foraging berries and fruits, as they're the easiest to identify. So I was hiking up Mount Arrowsmith yesterday. I found some yellow flowers, which I'm pretty sure were the wild potatoes, because I know they grow up on Mount Arrowsmith. I've seen them before. I also know that they grow in valley areas high up in the alpine area. So as you can see in this footage, I'm pretty sure this is it, but out of respect for the environment, I didn't dig up any of the potatoes just because I didn't want to ruin kind of degrade the trail, and I just leave nature as is. But if I do find them in another area where it's not quite like a busy hiking trail, I will dig them up and try them on this channel. And foods like the wild potato were very important to the Native Americans of this area, as they would once a year would go stockpile a whole bunch of them, like dig up hundreds, something like 4,000 pounds of these potatoes, and just stockpile them. So in the wintertime, when they didn't have anything more interesting or tasty to eat, and they had this big stockpile of these potatoes, which is a good calorie source to survive. So it's important to learn not only what grows in your environment at your current elevation, but possibly learn what grows at other elevations, like higher up in the mountains. Such as in my case, I do lots of hiking. I knew there was something called low bush blueberries. I've never found them before until I went on the hike up Mount Adder. So you can see this footage here. I found this right at the top of Mount Adder, and I knew there was no other berry like it that would, kill me or be poisonous. So I just popped them out and ate them with pretty good confidence, and they're fantastic. They're actually among the best blueberries I've found in the wild. So first off, with wild foraging, there's only a few simple rules you need to do. So first off, you want to find something, then you want to take some pictures of it, take some pictures of the leaves or the whole bush or tree, whatever it is, and also take some of the berries off or fruit and open them up and show what the inside is. So take some pictures on the inside. So then what you're going to need to do is find a gardening forum. I find gardeners know the best for your local area. So for me, there's a gardening Facebook group called Gardening Fanatics of Vancouver Island. And if I post anything on there, they'll know what it is. You want to get like pretty good, like someone saying for sure this is this berry or this fruit. This is especially important when you're identifying mushrooms, because many mushrooms will kill you. So we'll get into mushrooms in a bit, but yeah, just post that on there, have them identified, and then you can go back out and harvest some, and then you can bring them home and like really do your own research, look them up, look up other pictures, really verify what you're looking at is what it is. And then, for me, what I do, as I live less than a kilometer away from the hospital, so I always taste test my stuff in my home, with my phone next to me, just in case there's some weird chemical reaction. That way I can just either quickly go over to the hospital, or I can, call the ambulance or something. So that way, there's really no risk to it. So just walking in a few feet, like I'm something like, you see the trail behind me here, like not even 100 meters into this trail, and I've already identified numerous things that are edible. So over here beside me, this here with the small leaves, this is a red huckleberry. Hopefully you can see that. This is a lake. These are usually come in like 2 months ago. So this is it's kind of woody and chewy, which is weird for these. They should be juicy and tasty, but these are edible. Over here. There we go. There we go. Okay, see all these berries? All these blue ones here. These are Oregon grape. Just because they're named Oregon grape doesn't mean they taste like grapes. They actually taste like lemons. So these look like they're perfectly ripe. And if you'll notice too, I'll just mention as a quick point, hopefully you can see on the berries, there's kind of like a layer of dust, or it kind of looks like when you brush them, they get a darker color, which looks like there's a layer of film on them. That layer of like little dust or whatever is actually like a natural chemical coating that it produces to help preserve them. And blueberries do the same thing. If you wipe a blueberry, it gets kind of like a darker color to it. That's just to help preserve it. It's not like some dust off the road or whatever. The only time you have dust off a road when you're foraging is when you're in like a backroads kind of forestry road and there's lots of gravel and there's gravel dust. Then that'll be dust from the gravel, from all the trucks driving by. So Oregon grape. Oh. They taste like lemons. Okay, so when I was walking in here, this doesn't usually happen like this, but I did find something new and I don't know what this is, so I'll take you along for the process of, identifying this. You see this bush here. It has this one clump on the end. You can see that? This clump of berries. I don't know what this is. My guess is this kind of looks like a honeysuckle. Now, some honeysuckles are edible and some honeysuckles are poisonous and will kill you. So for this reason, I can't just pop this in my mouth. And the general rule is if you find something red like this, red equals dead. So don't eat red berries unless you know exactly what they are. So I'm going to pop this off and take this home and then identify it. Okay, so you can see I pulled off this berry with a bit of the stem and a couple of the leaves. I also took a few pictures of it, so I'll post it on my gardening, the Facebook gardening group I'm a part of, and then they can tell me what this thing is. And to take this home, it's best to keep, when I go hiking, I have hard plastic case with a screw top, and then you can put these inside, and then that way, if all your stuff inside your bag smashes against it, it won't squish and squeeze them and make all the juice come out. It'll keep them in perfect shape. Now, when it comes to mushrooms, you want to make sure 100% mushrooms that you're picking are edible. And for mushrooms, you want to cut them with you want to bring a sharp knife and cut them at the base and leave them the mycelium in the ground. You don't want to destroy that because it'll produce more mushrooms. Mushrooms, yeah, you want to be really careful with, because even if you get some spores on your fingers and they're a poisonous mushroom, it could poison you. So take pictures of mushrooms, post them on forums, and it's best to actually have someone in person tell you which mushrooms are edible. The most important thing is to identify if the mushrooms are ones that have lookalikes or not, like doppelgangers. You want to find, so if a mushroom has a doppelganger, a lookalike mushroom that is similar to it but is like poisonous or could kill you, those you really need someone in person to help you. In the case of, say, me, I had someone show me the hedgehog mushroom that grows here. The hedgehog mushroom doesn't have any lookalikes, and it's really easy to identify, and it's got little spikes on the underside, so it's really easy for me to identify. So those are the easiest ones to forage first. So the number one rule of foraging is if it tastes bad, spit it out. This is something that was very evident when I was hiking up Crest Mountain and I came across what looked like black currants. Couldn't believe it. I filmed them. I grabbed a couple specimen, put them in one of those, like I mentioned, a hard plastic case with a round top, and brought them home. And after they were properly identified, they were wild black currants. So I taste tested them and they tasted terrible. So I spit them out because, I mean, who knows if it's some weird strain or variety. You don't want to get sick from it. It tastes bad, there's no point eating it. Okay, so that finishes up this segment on wild. Now let's move over to urban foraging, which I think probably is more useful to more of you. So some tips now for urban foraging. You can first off just look down your suburban streets, and some people have apple trees or whatever. And we'll go over a few examples of that in a bit. But first, bridging over from the wild into the urban, there's often trails where people go hiking or walk their dogs. And this is the first place to look for just lots of free fruit. So people will throw away like an apple core or whatever 20 years ago, and now there'll be an apple tree loaded with apples. So I know of 3 apple trees up on a hike locally where there's just tons of apples up there because a couple people threw away a couple apples 20 years ago, and now there's trees up there. And the same goes with numerous other things. So behind me here, well, I've got blackberries over here, and if we head further in, there'll be some other stuff on this trail. So right away, just walking in 10-15 feet, this bush here is loaded with huckleberry. Now this will be a wild one. This isn't something that someone just threw and it grew, but I mean, often these grow in places where there's been trees or land that's been cleared, so more sun can come in, and also sometimes as more water can come in, depending on what it is, like maybe salmon berries. So my eagle eye has now spotted some salal berries just back here. Well, these are some really big juicy ones. Check this out. I don't have a zoom on this camera, but I mean, these are huge. So these are all salal berries. They kind of, depending on, sometimes these taste powdery, sometimes they taste good. They really depend. They're kind of juicy, you can see. They kind of got a taste of their own, a very berry taste. Yeah, if you want a more in-depth description, you can subscribe to my Unusual Foods channel where I do taste tests on all sorts of stuff like this. So just walking along this trail here, you can see a stockpile of apples. I have no idea what this is. It looks like someone dumped all these. Maybe this is from their home, but this is a perfect example. Someone dumped all their apples from home, and now an apple tree will grow from here. 100% apple tree is going to grow from all this. So in 20 years, come back here, there will be an apple tree. So I'm going to take you guys over to a secret spot I know where there's a wild cherry tree. It's not just any cherry tree though. I had to get this one identified. I can't remember the name of it. There's a scientific name for it, but it's actually a poisonous cherry because it's high in cyanide. But it is edible in very small amounts. You can eat a couple berries, you're fine. But if you start eating handfuls, you will get poisoned. So we're just going to head down this trail for a bit, and once we get there, you will see the cherries. So heading down towards the wild cherries, you can see there's a ton of blackberries here. This is all blackberries. And we'll go over this in a second. I need to be back in my car to show you how to properly harvest blackberries. Aside from reaching in and grabbing one like this, like there's a way to get all the ones that are way back up here without getting yourself all cut up. Okay, so I'm still walking out to the wild cherries. I just keep getting sidetracked here, but I'm gonna show you guys everything. Over here, beside me here, you can see this whole thing is rose hips. So these are all edible. I mean, people usually boil these and make like a tea out of them, but they're kind of fibrous and, you know, but you can't eat them. They are edible. There you go. So that is a rose hip. Very hard. I'm not going to eat this right now because that's not going to taste great. It's the kind of thing you want to boil for sure. Okay, so remember the rule I said, red equals dead? Well, in this case, it's orange. So I don't know what those are, but I would not eat those because anything that's kind of like matte, not glossy, and is an orange or red color, stay away unless you know exactly what it is. Okay, so I passed by the cherry trees here. They're actually called bitter cherry. I just remember their name. And the first couple didn't have any left. This one has, I think, one cherry. It has one cherry up there. I don't know if you're gonna be able to see that. Hopefully maybe I can point that out later because I can't tell, but there's one cherry right there. These things were loaded before, but yeah, there's nothing left. Oh, there's one in the bush here. Not much left. Yeah, so they're all falling off now. So yeah, there's some weird noises there. There's also some weird shapes there. So what I'm doing right now is actually not proper. I should be more armed with a big knife and whatever, anything, a walking pole, some bear spray, some dog spray, something. I basically have no defense right now. So if there was a cougar or a bear there wanted to eat me, I'd be lunch. So yeah, sadly the cherry tree, like there's nothing left on it, but you could see there was a couple cherries. Hopefully you can see that. But even walking to this bitter cherry tree, we came across all that other stuff. Okay, so just hearing whatever that noise was, it sounded like a bear or something, brought up an interesting point or an interesting thought in my mind, and which was reinforced by a snake I just stepped over. So wherever you're foraging in the world, you want to make sure that there are, I'm like checking for snakes right now. You want to make sure that there's nothing super poisonous in your forest or your woods, or at least you know what you're looking for. So where I live, we don't have any poisonous spiders, I don't think. Maybe there's like one, but even then it's like, it won't kill you. And there's no poisonous snakes. We have only small snakes, and they just kind of like, they just like hiss, they don't do anything. They're not gonna hurt you. But if you live somewhere down like in Texas where there's like big monster snakes that'll eat you alive, then you wanna be aware of that, know where they live, and maybe not forage in those areas. So we're gonna start heading over to the residential neighborhood stuff, but first we're gonna go over how to pick blackberries or anything with thorns very easily. And all you need is a couple tools. So just on my way back to the vehicle and to show you about the blackberries, I ran into a couple that was foraging, ironically enough, a bunch of blackberries, and they mentioned that there's also elderberry, and I had no idea there's elderberry around here. Now I'm aware that elderberry do grow here, but I've never seen any wild elderberry bushes. So if you go out there, you might run into people and learn something new. And if you're just getting into this, you don't know anyone, then I would suggest you go on a website called fallingfruit.org. It's a website where people will post where they find edible trees or whatever. They might be nut trees, it might be cherries or plums or peaches or whatever. And you can just go on there and look up your area and find whatever, you can search whatever you want on there. And it'll show you the trees that produce those fruits or whatever, roots or whatever they are. Okay, so now when it comes to foraging things with large spines or thorns, like blackberries, I've got a secret that works really well. And all you're gonna need is this fly to go away. Go away, fly. So you want long sleeve pants like I'm wearing right now. You're gonna need some gloves and a long sleeve like shirt or a jacket, preferably a jacket, and something you don't mind that gets blackberry purplish juice all over. So our main secret weapon against thorns is not only having nice like rubber gloves, protective long sleeves, long pants, but this, a big piece of cardboard. Okay, so when we've got some brambles like this, you're gonna take your piece of cardboard, open it up and use it as a shield to protect yourself. So once you pick everything that's easy to get at and you wanna get further in, you can just put your cardboard down and then you can just wedge your way in deeper and get stuff that's way further back like this, and you're not getting stabbed by all the thorns, even though there's a lot of weight pushing against you. You can also use this higher up if there's tall brambles, and then you can lean on it. You can also use a ladder and lay it against the brambles and then put the cardboard in between to protect yourself. I found a plum tree that is full of plums right now. For whatever reason, it's really late to blooming. It's full of yellow plums. They're super tasty. They're not infested with bugs, because some of the apple trees or plum or pear trees around here will get infested with certain bugs. So if you find a good tree like that, oh, you gotta strike when it's hot. And so today we're gonna go back into town and I'm gonna show you the kind of container I use to capture a bunch of fruit like that and my other secret weapon. So let's go. When it comes to foraging in urban environments, the best way is to walk around and find a really good fruit tree that you want some fruit from, and then just go knock on the person's door and ask them if you can get some of the fruit. Sometimes you might be able to trade some services, like whatever, help them bring in some lumber from their front or backyard or mow their lawn or whatever it is to get some of that fruit, but often people will let you have it. There are some tell signs, so if you see a bunch of fruit on the ground, then that means they don't care about it. And often it's a big nuisance to them because they get all this fruit all over the place and makes a mess when they walk in and out of their house, and they would rather people pick that fruit. So where I'm parked now is exactly that situation. So before we get to the plum tree, I'm going to show you an apple tree here where it's just loaded with apples and it's just a mess all over the place. The other thing you can do is look on city land. So I've noticed on city land there's some plum trees where I live. And so it's owned by the city. You can just go there and take it. Like no one's going to stop you. And when I mentioned city land, something else is important to note is that if a branch is overhanging onto the sidewalk, that airspace, that land is city land. So if you pick fruit that's overhanging onto the sidewalk, like that's not technically the homeowner's fruit. You might be stepping on some toes if it's, you know, whatever, some big fig tree with delicious figs and they don't want them picked. But when it comes down to it, it's up to the homeowner to prune the trees to the sidewalk border. So anything over that you can technically pick. It's just up to you if you want to like grab a couple quick pieces of fruit or if you want to make a relationship with that homeowner to try to get some more figs off their tree or whatever it is. So without looking like a paparazzi here, I'm going to just quickly take you out and show you this apple tree with the apples loaded all over the ground. And this is just a tell sign, this is free fruit. So let's go. So you can see here, this is the apple tree. And on the ground, just loaded with apples. So above us here, tons of apples. So when you're looking for free fruit in the city, it's best to kind of go along the parks because you often find people through their, you know, peach or plum pit, and then it grew and 20 years later you have what's beside me here. This is a giant yellow plum tree. So to get these plums, when people walk by, everyone's going to pick the ones they can reach, but no one will go to the effort to actually grab a ladder and come out here and pick them. So there's tons up here, but no one can reach them. So I brought my ladder and it's time to get to work. So what I recommend you bring, not only a ladder like this, but also a large plastic container to put your fruit in so it won't get crushed. So you can see the yellow plums here. If we go over here, there's tons and tons and tons of them up here. And they're just out of reach. Like all you need to get up there is like 5 or 6 feet. A couple other tips is to learn when certain fruit are in season and look on the ground when you walk through parks to see if any of the fruit has fallen off. So you can see here, there's tons of these yellow plums on the ground. And some of them are brown, so they've been falling off probably for a month now. But I ate one the other day when I was on a run. I had to jump up the tree to get it, and it was absolutely delicious. So let's clear this tree off now. So there are a couple different techniques to get fruit out of a tree like this. I don't really want to climb too high on this ladder just because this ground is not stable, it's not flat. So what I did here is I shook the tree and the fruit falls down, and I just look which ones are fresh and rolling on the ground and quickly pick them up. And that way you know like a dog hasn't pissed on them or they haven't been rotting or whatever. And the other way is to use a grabber. There's one of those long plastic things you can get at a dollar store for grabbing stuff. And you can just reach up and grab the fruit one by one. I've misplaced mine, so I don't know where mine is. So as you can see, I got some nice yellow plums here. There are more up here, but I'm just gonna take these for now and keep moving along. So just a few feet from the wild plums, see this white flower? This is a wild carrot. Now, if it's already flowering like that, it's gonna be woody and gross, but it may have a smaller baby that doesn't have flowers yet you could eat. Okay, the final stop of this foraging journey, we've got a fig tree in someone's yard that's overhanging the city land. So often when I go for a run, I make this road a part of my run back home so I can run past this tree and grab some figs before I go home. So let's go take a look. I'll show you this fig tree. So you can see figs all over the ground. All over the ground, some soft ones. And here they are here. So I'm squishing figs as we speak, which is a little sad, but like this one, not quite ripe, not quite ripe, not quite ripe. Trying to find one that's right for you guys. So you can see I pulled a fig off here. Unfortunately, this fig is not ripe. It's the softest one I could find, but it seems the softest ones are on the ground, sadly. But, you know, it's not the cleanest environment. Hopefully you enjoyed this episode of the basics of wild or urban foraging. If you want to see possibly some foraging in the woods, up in the mountains, or I don't know, anything like that, let me know in the comments below. And until next one, have a good one.